Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Jenny Eponyi-William, and I'll be lecturing on academic skills and studying with confidence. So the module code for this module is BMM 3113. And if you have any questions, concerns, you need more information about academic skills and studying with confidence, you can contact me on my email. That is j.eponyu-william@leadstrinity.ac.uk. You can find all the information you need, your learning resources, lecture slides in Moodle under the module code, which is BMM 3113. At the last lecture, we talked about common referencing problems. And one of that common problem is using inconsistent style of referencing. So for example, the style we use at Leeds Trinity University is Harvard referencing. And in your assignment, dissertation, or coursework, you're using Harvard, you're also using Vancouver, and you're using the Chicago style. It's a mixture of those, and that is a common error. Or you place the period mark or the comma in the wrong place. These are all common errors, and you need to avoid them when you are referencing. So look at the abridged version, go through it step by step. How do you reference print books? How do you reference online resources, print journal articles, online resources, websites? How do you reference them? The more you engage, the more you keep using the referencing style, the more you get used to it. And that's the whole point of research. When you engage with different resources, such as websites, print, online, you use them in your research, you get to know how to reference all these resources in Harvard referencing, so that it becomes a part of your writing process. So you don't always have to go and check, well, what does the Harvard referencing style say about this? You can do a quick check once you've written your conclusion of your paper, but because you've been using different sources of when you're in your research, you get used to it. That is the beauty of always referencing. So for today's session, we'll be talking about best practices in verbal presentation skills. At the end of this session, you should be able to appreciate the best practices in verbal presentation skills. What is a good presentation? What is not a good presentation? What should you do? How can you engage your audience? These are the things that learning outcomes that should be fulfilled at the end of this session. So verbal presentation skills are key skills that you need in the university and also in the workplace. So it's important that you appreciate the importance of it and you imbibe the best practices while you are studying your course, and also which will be useful for you in the workplace. So what is presentation? I'm sure many of you have engaged in different arguments, online forums, discussing with people in the cafe, some informal discussions, group discussions. You are talking with different audiences. So that's not what presentation is. Presentation, you are convincing your audience that your ideas are valid. You are not just throwing out ideas into the thin air. You have a structure, you have a format. Whether you're using presentation, the presentation slide, you're using a projector, or you're using flashcards, which is old school way. Some people still use it, but it's not common. The whole point of it is to convince the audience that your ideas are valid. Make sure that they find it interesting, and above all, ensure that they understand and they learn. So what can basically go wrong when you're presenting? Obviously, one thing that could go wrong is if technology is faulty on the day. That is why it's a good thing to get in early before your presentation, check your slides, have a backup copy, check that the laptop you're using is compliant with the projector slide, just basically all the housekeeping rules to make sure that technology is fine on that day. However, another thing that could happen is you start presenting and your audience just looks disinterested. The average concentration span for most people is less than 5 minutes. So you just have basically 1 or 2 minutes to capture their interest, and not just capture the interest, to sustain the interest throughout the presentation. Because otherwise could be boring and they could switch off. So it's very important to capture the interest of your audience and to sustain that during the presentation. One good way of doing that is to make sure that the contents are simple. So we use the KISS concept, K-I-S-S, keep it simple, stupid. So they see it as very simple, they follow it, and they will find it engaging. So think about examples of what could happen. Reflect on it. What could happen if, or something that could happen, something that could go wrong when you are presenting. It's a good way to prepare yourself for presentation, because when you think about all these things that could go wrong and you come up with a plan on how to eliminate or reduce the risk, you prepare yourself, you're in a better position, you're prepared for the presentation. So why are contents important? Because one key thing we need to understand is that you're there not to just read the slides to the audience, but you're there to engage them. So they need to see what you're talking about. So no content, no presentation. So contents are a very key part of presentation. And also using inconsistent and difficult concepts. So you're presenting something on the topic. Let's assume cultural diversity. How can I make cultural diversity interesting to the audience? Are you going to talk about the theories? Are you going to use a case study of one company, of the before, of what they used to do wrong about cultural diversity, imbibing cultural diversity in their training programs, and how the company has progressed? So you show the before and the after. So you need to have a structure, and you have to make it simple. You need to keep it simple for the audience. So there's a structure, there's a format, so they don't lose interest. If it's all your ideas are all over the place, you may be unable to sustain the interests. So it's best to always start with easier concepts. For example, you start with definitions and then you build on it. So imagine if you're talking about cultural diversity to a group of people who don't know anything about cultural diversity. How would you approach that? You need to first start with a definition, move on to maybe a scenario of an example of cultural diversity, and then you build on it. And of course, you need to use visuals such as pictures and colors, because you might have visual learners or visual people in the audience who that is their preferred learning style, for example. So if you don't have visuals, you will lose, they will lose interest in your presentation. So visuals are very important. Of course, relevant pictures to the concept that you're doing, or to the topic you're teaching or presenting on. And also, your contents should be valid. Because if your contents are not valid, you will not meet the assessment criteria. You will be checking. You're talking about cultural diversity, are your definitions correct? Your concepts, even the visuals you are using in your presentation, are they correct? What resources have you used? These are the things that we'll be checking. So if it's not valid, unfortunately, you will not be able to meet the assessment criteria. So it's a good thing, even though it's a presentation, it is still part, you still need to do research on your structure, your format, and your content before you get onto the presentation. So, is this your first time? Your first time doing a presentation? Are you nervous? It happens to everybody. Even for people who do TED Talks, some of them will still tell you that they even had a panic attack before they got on stage, and you'll be wondering that, oh, this TED Talk has over 10 million views. Could they really have had nervous fright? These are people, some of them have been presenting for so many years, 15, 20, 30 years, yet first time meeting that set of audience, there could be an element of nervousness. So according to Larry Kim, the CEO of Mobile Monkey, his advice, he said, it's good to be nervous. So you know the issue and you can work on it. You can know how to work on it. Some people advise, look, when you first start your presentation, look at the top of the heads of the people until you get more familiar with the audience, and then look at them eyeball to eyeball so you don't lose your train of thoughts. But the key word there is that you can transform that nervousness into enthusiasm. So you can think about it in this way, that the audience are there to learn from you. They feel that they're giving you their time because they know or they feel that you have something to offer them. So just think about it that and be enthusiastic that, oh, I'm going to talk about this concept, talk about this topic, and I'm going to be engaging with people, networking with people that I've never met before. Or even if you've met them before, you're engaging with them, you're presenting to them about something that you're passionate about. And always remember that everyone, to a large extent, they're like you. They are your class fellows in the presentation. They could also be nervous as well. So think about your body language. It's very important. It would be good. Some people try to move their hands. For example, people are looking at you. The audience could also read your body language. If you give them the impression for your body language that you are not interested in what you're doing, that could make them to switch off. So you're talking not only with your mouth, you're talking with your body too. Make sure you're making eye contact with them, looking at them. They can see the passion on your face. They can see the enthusiasm. You're moving around. So for example, you're engaging. Some people even move around the audience when they throw a question. You're gesticulating. And most importantly, you are involving the audience. So when you ask a question, for example, you want to hear from them, hear their perspective, to give an alternative opinion. When you are doing all that, that is your body language. That is also an important part of the presentation. So yeah, everybody likes entertainment. Everybody likes to be entertained. We want something that can capture our attention, sustain our interests. So think about this. What kind of teaching style do you like? Do you like the lecturer or the teacher to just come and direct you? Or you prefer a discussing teaching style where the lecturer engages you in the discussion? Because when you are engaged in discussion, you will remember the examples and you wouldn't forget it in the exam or when you're doing your assessment. So whichever teaching style you prefer, it's good you adopt that practice, you imbibe that style in your presentation. Maybe you're someone that you prefer a tutor that has a good sense of humor. You can crack a joke, give an icebreaker, for example, make them laugh for a couple of seconds. That could help to even stem down your nervousness and get the audience to, oh, look up to what you're going to teach. You've captured their interest. You are able to sustain it because they say, oh, no, he or she has a good sense of humor. Oh, the icebreaker, I love the icebreaker activity. Oh, I need to find out more about this topic. So right from the very beginning, you've engaged them and you've captured, and most likely you're going to sustain their interests. So add color for examples, use real life scenarios, what is happening in the country, for example, what's happening in Europe, in other parts of the world, a scandal, for example, something that has been in the news. Use all this to engage them, and then you'll see that their interest will be sustained, because they'll be looking forward to, oh, what's the next thing that the presenter is going to say. So think about, when you're doing your presentation, think about ways in which you can engage the audience, how you can impact them, ensure that they learn and understand, and also in a way entertain them. So it's good to do a dummy run. So do a 5 minute presentation using a projector so that you get familiar with how it works. And then also a 10 minute group activity. How are you going to engage with your group members, your team members? How will you delegate the different roles and responsibilities? How would you approach introduction when you went for the group presentation? Who is going to do that? How are you going to stand? And in terms of who is going to stand in one direction of the projector, another person who's going to be the one at the clicking the project, the control, who's going to do all that. These are things that the roles that you will be able to assign when you do a dummy practice. So what did we learn today? We learned that presentations are fun. They can also be boring, on the other hand, if you do not engage the audience. So the concentration span of your audience is very short, possibly less than 5 minutes. So when your pre-presentation, you do your thorough research, have a good structure, have a good format, think of icebreaker activities and put them in your presentation. And then when you're presenting, think about, how can I capture their interest, and how can I, most importantly, sustain that interest during the presentation. So your format, structure of your presentation, you keep it simple. You start with easy concepts, and as you move on with presentation, you build on using real life scenarios, and you move on to the more difficult concepts. So if you have any questions, concerns, or you need more information about the best practices when it comes to oral presentations, feel free to send me an email. Thank you for listening.